This is a tandem assault on our wallets. Welcome to the podcast where we discuss how to outmaneuver your opponents. I'm Faith, and I'm here with Jrod and His Dudeness. We are back and greeted with news from the next set, Jump to Lightspeed. We also have some more news about collector boosters. But first, we have Jrod back to report on PAX. Jrod, how did it go?
PAX was awesome. I honestly went into the weekend on a low because they didn't have any big events. And so it was only going to be pods. So I was a little bummed out about that. And so I figured the Star Wars Limited community wouldn't have a massive turnout because of that. However, I was proven wrong as usual. And there was so many people there. I mean, Friday, Saturday, and even most of Sunday, the booth was packed from beginning to end. Towards the end of PAX on Sunday, it definitely petered off a little bit. But basically, the devs were there. People were there. The lines for like the developer games you could play 1v1 against them, the lines were basically around the entire SWU area, which was awesome to see people wanting to interact with them and hang out with them. And I got to hang out with Xander and MJ and Ryan and Corey and the other Ryan that was there. All great people. Got to chat with them a bunch and ask them a bunch of awesome questions. And it was just, for me, an awesome weekend. I played a good amount of SWU. Got to draft with most of the devs. That was awesome. So I'm now 2 for 2 at PAX events, getting to draft with developers. So that was super cool. I drafted a really good Anakin yellow deck that I would have stacked up against almost anybody's draft deck because it was pretty bonkers. I had 3 Anakin's interceptors. The big thing I know everyone was upset about there not being a big event. So I actually sat down with Corey for a little bit and asked him about that. And basically he pushed for more convention space, wasn't able to get it for whatever reason. He didn't tell me why, but he just wasn't able to get more convention space. And then he said I could either have run one large event with the area that we had, or I can run a bunch of pods. Being there and seeing the size of the space, I would agree that he had the choice of one or the other, and he couldn't do both. And because of that, I think choosing to just do pods is the correct thing because it allows more players to play, and I just think it gets people in there playing the game more. And the learn to plays were also filled up. I think I was one of the first people who did a draft. Well, actually, I did premiere when I first walked in on Friday. I won a bunch of packs, and I gave all my extra commons and uncommons and a couple of the rares I didn't need to the learn to play section so they could hand it out to new players. And by the end of the weekend, there was about 10 massive stacks of common, uncommon cards for new players to just take and grab with them if they wanted to, that were learning to play the game. So I don't know if I was the only person that started that, but I know I was one of the first to do it. And I'm just glad to see this community come together and trying to get new people into the game with cards that they likely don't need if they've been playing for a while. So that was awesome to see. One of the other major topics that was noted was that they had hired 5 new individuals for the design/development team. The second Ryan that I mentioned was one of them. He happened to live in Philadelphia, so he asked if he could just pop over to PAX and meet some people. So that was awesome. I got to draft with him and talk with him a bunch. He's a competitive player by nature, and one of his roles is to test out the game, the newer cards that have been designed. So they're kind of separating that, which is super awesome. So I'm sure they'll make an official announcement at some point. Get to meet the whole team. I only got to meet Ryan, but he was super friendly, super awesome. So that's exciting news that that FFG is expanding that team so drastically so soon. I mean, technically, we're still in year 1, and that they're already investing in the game that heavily as well. Just to me, just shouts amazing news for the game as a whole and its health and where this game, I think, is headed. Xander also mentioned to me a couple of times how awesome that Worlds is going to be. He couldn't go into details with me, unfortunately, at this time, but he just the way his body language, everything was talking about it, I could just feel some sincere excitement on how awesome Worlds is going to be. So I haven't booked my stuff for Worlds just yet, but I'm probably going to here shortly because I don't want to miss that train because it sounds like it's going to be a phenomenal time. Whether you're in the Worlds event or doing other things, he made it sound like there's going to be something for anyone there. So if you enjoy Star Wars Unlimited and you want to take a trip to play it next year, I would definitely mark off Worlds as your one trip for the year if you can only do one.
Man, a train ride from New England to Las Vegas sounds like a pretty far train ride.
True, but for SWU Worlds, worth it. I did get to interview MJ, who is one of the lead designers for Set 4. That released on Saturday. So if you have not already checked that out, please go and check that out. And make sure you like and comment on that because we still have our massive giveaway going on. If you don't know what the massive giveaway is, through the whole month of December, we're giving away 3 OP packs for set 1, set 2, set 3. Those also include sealed initiative tokens for those sets. And then we'll have 2 individual winners winning either a box of Spark of Rebellion or a box of Twilight of the Republic. So if you want your chances to win those, be sure to comment and like all of our videos throughout the month of December to earn your entries into that event.
And thank you for everyone who's already entered for the event. We've got a lot of entries, and so we're excited to see our winners come the end of the month.
Yes, I have a whole week off toward the end of the month. Is the only reason why I agreed to do this, because it's definitely going to be a lot of work having to sort through all those. But please give me more work to do. We love it. We want to see it, and we definitely want to give back to our community who's been so gracious for us throughout this first year of Star Wars Unlimited. So thank you again.
On a recent interview with Xander talked about how their kind of idea with doing events at these kind of conferences, just because you mentioned about like whether we're going to do them, they didn't want to impact you going to PAX because, as Jrod, you told us, is that you did other things, and which is great. And so it's nice actually to not be kind of locked in or like locked behind a badge to get to these events. He did mention in this recent interview that they may do like bigger one-day events at upcoming conferences that they go to, but we'll have to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I very much agree with them not putting any like planetary qualifiers or any of those kind of events to earn your seat to Worlds in a convention, because paying for a convention pass and then only going to play Star Wars Unlimited definitely leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So I appreciate and agree with that choice. What I think most people were looking for were like either a 1K style event where you're winning money, or maybe a win a case or something like that. Like just a slightly bigger event that you can test your mettle as a competitive player and try to take down maybe 100-person event. I think that's what would have drawn in a bunch more people to Star Wars Unlimited. But like I said, the space was packed. Like there was, I was playing a casual game and one of the judges had to come over and politely ask us to move because they needed the space for another pod. Like, it was almost impossible to get just a casual game of Star Wars Limited over there because of how busy it was, which is like a good problem to have. So like, I think they could double their space and have no problems filling that area with players.
It's good to see a event that's packed, and let's hopefully those continue as the game continues to grow. As the game continues to grow with the number of players, we are getting news that was very expected that the game is going to be growing in number of sets as well. For the weekend on Wednesday, we got news about Jump to Lightspeed, and we got some of the leaders and some of the cards revealed. And so we also got some of the mechanics as well revealed. And I know Dudeness is very excited to talk about some of these mechanics.
Very excited indeed. But also it's a double-edged sword because we do see a brand new mechanic in the ability to make your cards into pilots. They give us a little taste of them. We have Chewbacca and Bosk. And both of these have an alternative casting cost. You can pay their pilot cost and attach them to a space unit as an upgrade. And they usually have some sort of inherent ability on it as well. My favorite of those two is the Chewbacca. He's a 5 cost, 5/6 ground unit in command heroism. And he says this unit can't be defeated or returned to hand by enemy card abilities. Or you can pay 3 for his pilot cost and attach him as a 3/3 upgrade to a space unit with the same text. This unit can't be defeated or returned to hand by enemy card abilities. And I think that is bonkers good, because the main downside to attaching upgrades to your units is that they then become vulnerable to being 2-for-1, 3-for-1 with removal or bounce effects. Well, Chewbacca just says, nuh-uh, stop all of that. You have to defeat this actually in space with another space unit, which I think is absolutely incredible. I can't wait to play this card. This is one of the very first cards I will be trying when I start testing set 4. That being said, they also decided to put this same ability on leader cards. And I think that is one of the absolute worst decisions they could possibly have ever made, because it was then later revealed or found out that you can just play a simple confiscate and defeat your opponent's leader that they just attached to their unit via the pilot mechanic, which I just think is awful. I think that's going to be one of the worst feels bad moments in the entire game. I don't think people wanted this mechanic on leaders. This mechanic on cards, I think, is absolutely incredible. The flexibility of being able to play it as an upgrade or play it on the ground. You have one card that can affect both lanes. Super awesome. Them being on leaders really makes me a sad boy.
So I was able to ask MJ and a couple other the developers about this and brought up the confiscate issue. And basically, I think it's going to come down to whatever the meta is when it shifts around. Because yes, if piloting leaders are the best leaders in the game and are topping top tables, then yes, you'll probably see a lot of confiscate. However, if there's not a lot of them in the top tables, people are playing other things but having piloting in their decks, you'll probably not see as many confiscates. So there'll be this ebb and flow of that. But also, they have the ability to just deploy in the ground, which understandably is significantly worse than putting them on the ships. It's understandable, but like you still have that option if you think your opponent has confiscate in hand or is playing confiscate.
Sure. Right.
So like it still adds just another layer of like, can I look at their hand? Is there a way like can I get a read on them? I think they might have it here or something like that. It's interesting, and I get that confiscate's a one-cost gray card. I can go in like basically any deck, and it's not very cumbersome to play. So I agree with all that. We'll just have to kind of see how it plays out, and who knows what else could be in this set, right? Like, and like, how does confiscate work with Chewbacca, right? Like, can you still confiscate Chewbacca?
I assume you can, yeah.
I would assume so. Like, can you power the dark side Chewbacca, or is he like the other, the yellow ship there,
like lurking Phantom Tie?
Like lurking tie.
I think he cannot be power of the dark side. I believe that is. It reads choose an opponent, then they choose a unit to defeat, right?
Yes.
That card is telling you to defeat this card. Well,
gotcha.
I do just want to point out, just because maybe people at home who are listening don't understand kind of what we're talking about. As an epic action, this is just Han Solo's, just so we can read. It says, epic action, if you control 5 or more resources, choose one, and then it gives you 2 options. As your epic action, you can either deploy the leader, and it's got its regular attack and health stats, or it says, deploy this leader as an upgrade on a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it. So if you're at home, you haven't seen the new cards yet, that's how some of these new leaders are going to be.
Yeah, it was actually revealed that not every leader in the set will have the pilot mechanic on it.
And if you want to find out some more information on set 4, like I said earlier, I did do an interview with MJ, so be sure to check that out. It was a great interview. They answered a bunch of great questions for us.
And so piloting is one of the new keywords. We also heard about another keyword that we're going to get in this next set. Jrod, do you want to talk to us about that one?
I would love to, and thank you for tossing it to me, because shout out to all of my Destiny players. We have indirect damage! Woo! So in Destiny, it worked a little differently, but basically the same thing. You're going to do damage, and your opponent gets to choose how they assign it. Obviously, if they only have their base there, it's going to go all to the base. But if they have units out, they can choose to divvy it up how they want. And you're like, but Jrod, this sounds terrible. I want to deal 5 damage to that one unit. Yes, it is worse that you're going to be giving your opponent a choice. Typically, with indirect damage cards, at least it was in Destiny, they will be giving you a bit more power for the same cost as you would. So for example, it's like Open Fire, which is the 3-cost aggression card that says deal 4 damage to a unit. If we had a similar card in this set that was indirect damage, it would likely say 3-cost, deal 5 indirect damage to your opponent. Again, and maybe it could be 6, but I'm guessing it's probably just going to be 5 in that ballpark range. If there was a card like that in this set, again, I don't know. That's just my assumption here. But then that way, your opponent would have to spread out an extra damage somewhere. So if they had a 3 health and a 2 health, you'd actually have to kill both of them. So there are times where that extra damage is helpful. And let's say they only had a 3 HP unit. You're not wasting it. It could then go to the base for 2. So I think this will be great. I think this is definitely interesting. It does go around shields because of the way shields work in this game, and it blocks all instances of 1 damage. Basically, how this would work is the damage would go underneath the shield and damage the unit, and if the unit still survived, it would survive with however much HP it has and the shield would still stay, is how the rules will work for indirect damage with shields. I know Lurking Tie is a big question mark, and Ryan was asked this at PAX. He could not give an official answer, even though he was fairly confident how it was going to work, because it wasn't official yet. So when the new updated rules come out for set 4, it will be in that ruling. So we'll have to just wait and see how it works for like Lurking Tie. I would imagine it doesn't kill it, but I could be wrong, because then I'm not sure what to do with that damage on the ship either. It's kind of awkward. So like, it could actually work either way. I'm not sure. I don't actually have a good guess for that.
I think what's interesting about indirect damage is the fact that your opponent always gets the choice to like hit it on their base of like Y-wing now. And that always gives, I'm not saying that makes it bad, because as you're saying, you're usually getting a higher voltage from the attack. The fact that they can spread it out though as they need to is just interesting, because like they could leave all their units with 1 health left, and that could lead for an interesting counterplay. And so I'm interested to see how people are going to choose to assign that damage.
You know which leader probably works best with indirect damage that no one's playing right now? Mace Windu. Because if they do what you said, Mace can then ping it off with the final one and just boop. Or Vader for that matter too.
Yeah, or Quinlan Voss, like playing things.
Absolutely. So some cool, interesting things to do to kind of finish off leaders.
Another kind of leader that could be pretty good is one of the leaders we got as one of our new leaders in no longer starter products, because we found out we're not going to get starter decks anymore. We are going to get a new thing called Spotlight decks. So that leader in particular is maybe Boba Fett, which we will touch on in just a moment. I want to just briefly mention the fact that we are now getting these Spotlight decks. And so a little bit of a explanation for those who are unaware. This is going to be, instead of a starter pack, which includes 2 decks, this is going to just include 1 deck, but there's going to be 2 different leaders. So there's a Han Solo and a Boba Fett. They're also going to be a pre-built 50-card deck. However, these are going to include more rares, and they're going to be designed to be better when you just grab them. And if you go up to your weekly event, you can play with this out of the box. And the idea is that the deck will be more competitive, more viable. It will also include a pack with it as well, unlike the starter deck. What are your guys' thoughts on these changes from 2 decks to 1, and including a pack as well?
I think it's phenomenal. I felt the starter decks were a bit underpowered. Like, you couldn't take them to a weekly and do well with them at all. And I'm not saying that these would be like, yeah, you could take it to a weekly and absolutely crush all your opponents. No, but I bet you could probably take these to weeklies and update them a little bit for like relatively cheap and probably do pretty decently. And maybe I'll have to make a video on that just to prove my point and, do some minor like cheap upgrades to it. So you buy the pack and then put like maybe $10 for the cards in the deck and then go play against people. We'll see. Maybe I'll just try that. We'll see.
Dudeness, what are your thoughts?
I think it's great, although it does ultimately mean you're going to have to pay more, 25 plus 25, to reach the playset of both of the cards, or all the cards that will be, only in these packs, as opposed to 35 like it was before. You do get 2 rando boosters, but I don't think that's that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably these will still be in the OP packs, the exclusive cards, the S rarity cards that will be in these.
I would imagine.
If that's the case, then obviously it's pretty much a non-issue. I do like these better though than starters, but they're marketed as 2 different items though, right? Because like the starter wasn't meant to go take it down to your local and actually do well. It was meant to introduce you to the mechanics of the game and have 2 pre-built decks that would have relative strength against each other that would make for the most optimal experience in that very specific, scenario or whatever. These decks aiming at actually being competitive right out of the box, and we see the back of one of them, of the Han Solo, and we can see a Cartel Turncoat and Greedo on the lineup of cards, the Phantom cards on the back. And those are both really good yellow 1-drops, which leads me to believe that these might actually be pretty competitive right out of the pack. And so I think that's a great thing.
I found it actually interesting in that pack as well, that Echo base is the base that was included. I wonder if we're going to get
not a set 4 base.
Unless Echo base will be a set 4 base. I'm not sure.
Oh,
true. Printing of bases.
True, because like Echo base, like obviously the Battle of Hoth had a bunch of ships there, so I could see that.
So you mentioned Han Solo's leader and some of the cards included, and I think it's worth mentioning what Han Solo's leader is, because those cards that you mentioned kind of go with his deck. Do you want to give a little explanation of Han Solo?
Absolutely. Let's bring him up here. So we've got Han Solo, Never Tell Me the Odds, which will cue you into a little bit of what his ability might be. He is a 5 deploy leader. His leader side action, to exhaust him, you can reveal the top card of your deck, then attack with a unit. And if the revealed card and that unit have different odd costs, that unit gets +1. That means if you attack with a 3-drop and you reveal a 1 or a 5 or a 7 from the top of your deck, you're going to get +1. Hey, that's great. That it seems a little weird to me. This is obviously pushing you in a direction of a certain deck building style of trying to pretty much ignore all the even cost cards. I don't even know. I mean, on the back of the fan of the box or whatever for this guy, it has nothing but odd cost cards, 1s and 3s is all we see. But then on his leader side or his unit side, whatever, you can deploy him as a 3/7, and that's it. He's just a blank 3/7, no text. That's not very exciting. But you can deploy him as a pilot. He is a 3/4 upgrade. Attached unit is a leader unit, which means that at least when you attach these pilot upgrades to your units, they can't be blown out by a vanquish or a waylay, which is good. But this says when deployed as an upgrade for each friendly unit or upgrade that has an odd cost, ready a resource. Now that is spicy.
I don't know. The last leader that ready the resource. I don't know.
So I mean, you can actually get for each friendly unit or upgrade that has an odd cost. So I mean, does this count himself actually? Like I assume, right? When deployed as an upgrade, he comes an employee will count himself.
Yes,
I would imagine. Yeah.
So like bare minimum, you're probably getting 2 resources back, and maybe you get 3 or 4 ?
Well, bare minimum is 1, right? That's the bare minimum. But
okay, true. But ideally, you're constructing your deck in a way where you're always going to have
right.
odd cost units to put this on. But yeah. It's interesting. I'll have to see it in play. Actually, I don't know if it's actually going to be good, but I like at least the idea of you having to change your deck building style to accommodate these odd only kind of thing.
So one thing to note about these upgrades is that they can go on either a space or a ground unit that's a vehicle. So just a reminder, it's this jump to light speed. We don't normally think of ground things jumping to light speed, but pilots can go on any vehicle. So that is kind of an interesting dynamic.
True.
Could go space, could go ground. I agree, though. One of my problems with the pilot mechanic on a leader is the fact that it does just take up space on a card. So he's got a really cool, I think, deploy effect as an upgrade, but then his unit option is just a blank 3/7, which is kind of meh, not really exciting for me.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that the cards are probably too powerful if they gave you good options on both sides. I would have to venture to guess because if you think about piloting, right? Think about for example, Chewbacca, right? The best turn 1 heroism ship to pair with that could be I don't know, Dudeness, what's the best turn 1 play for a ship for heroism?
A-Wing?
A-Wing, yeah, it's A-Wing.
Sure, A-Wing, perfect, thank you. Right? You put this on an A-Wing on turn 2. And then, or I guess, yeah, on turn 2, right? So then your A-Wing is is a 6 or
4/6.
It's a 4/6 or raid 2, right? That can't be defeated and it can't be returned to hand.
That's pretty gross.
Sounds great, dude. You need to settle down over there. This is achievement.
But that's what I'm saying. It's this ability is very good for aggro decks, and I imagine that we'll see some counterplay to it. But if I don't have the ability to defeat an upgrade instantly for that, I'm just gonna fall way behind, and I'm still gonna get hit for 3. It's not I can defeat both with that guy. I think Chewbacca's actually nuts. To be very clear.
Same here. Yeah. I would be very surprised if Chewbacca does not see play. And if that's the case, then the pilot mechanic is just...
Or there's just even more busted cards. But like, yeah. But I mean, like, so I think that this can really speed up the game, which is already pretty fast in my opinion, as a control player. So I trust FFG. They've been very good up to this point. So like I'm excited to see what they have for the other like control stuff to see how the meta will shake out. But it just seems like these cards in general have a lot more power just from the starter cards. I'm like, wow, like these cards, like Chewbacca is, in my opinion, probably the best card we've seen from a pre-constructed deck that FFG has released by far.
Much better, like that much better. You're saying than Anakin, like by a significant margin.
Yes. Anakin is fine. I think Chewbacca is actually insane.
Yeah, I would agree with that take. Now it's also possible they're trying to put cards in here that very much incentivizes you to want to go down to your local gaming store and perhaps purchase these spotlight decks, even if you aren't even the intended audience of trying to have a ready-made, certain power level deck ready to go out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely fair.
Going back to Han Solo, because you mentioned that on the back there were cards that cost 1, cost 3. Kind of a fun thing I was thinking of is Han Solo's ship that he's known for having is Millennium Falcon. Set 1 Millennium Falcon, same aspect pairing, and costs 3. And then I was thinking, well, in set 2 we had a Falcon, but it cost 6. So why wasn't that one odd? And I was thinking, it's Lando's, exactly. So it was kind of funny how they did that, I'm sure on purpose. But we are going to get another Falcon, a Heroism Falcon. This one costs 3. It is a 3/4, and you may play or deploy 1 additional pilot on this unit. And this unit gets +1/+0 for each pilot on it. So if you remember when we were talking about pilot earlier, you can only have 1 pilot on a regular unit, except for Falcon now. So allows you to have 2.
That card seems solid. I mean,
it being 3/4 in space, right?
And it's a rebel. So like looking at you, Leia, is that one of note? And like, but this can also just go in any hero deck, so it can go in like every hero deck. If you just need a 3/4 for 3, because like I know, like my Palpatine deck would probably love this card because like yes, we do have the 1/4 that has Sentinel. I can't remember the name, but I played a ton.
Concord Dawn.
Thank you. But like Falcon could absolutely just go into that deck too. Like why not? It's just a 3/4 for 3. Like that seems solid.
I mean, even often when I play just Punishing One in my Kylo deck is just a 3/4 for 3 on curve with maybe some upside later, right? It's still good enough.
Yeah. Right. So, this is the first printing of Han Solo and Falcon with the Rebel traits as well, because he has a smuggler underworld bounty hunter in the other. Just underworld, I think it's that one.
Yeah, just underworld, and Falcon will just underworld too, I think, or maybe like underworld vehicle
transport. But
yeah.
So it is nice to see some of that Rebel support coming.
Now this is curious. I kind of forgot transport was even a keyword, and if this set doesn't call out transports, then why did they even put them on the cards in the first place?
There's already a card that calls out for transport. It's like you can like draw a transport. I think it's like search top 10 cards of your deck for a bounty hunter item or transport card, reveal it, draw it.
Okay.
And it smuggles for 3. That's a base green uncommon.
I'm looking for more actual synergy, but yeah, I would expect transport to be called out in this set in some way, shape, or form because, right, what's it there for if it's not going to be put into play for this set is my prediction.
Listen, we have a lot of keywords on bases that don't do anything yet, so don't get your hopes up just yet, pal.
And so one of our Spotlight decks is going to be Han Solo. Jrod, do you want to talk to us about the other Spotlight deck?
Yeah, sure. We got Boba Fett. He's a cunning villainy 4/7 that flips on 5, and you can ready. No, I'm just kidding. It is Boba Fett. He is aggression villainy this time, however. He is a 4/7, but he deploys at 6. When you deal non-combat damage, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. That's his ability on his leader side. And then epic action, if you control 6 or more resources, you may choose one. I can deploy this leader as a 4/7, or I can deploy this leader as an upgrade on a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it, and it gets +4/+4. And then when it does that, it also says deal up to 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of units. So this is pretty insane. I think that's a very good leader, and he's not busted. He's just very good. So I'm kind of glad they toned down Boba Fett a little bit. And I'll be interested to see him in yellow, because we already have a yellow-red villainy base deck doing pretty well that I imagine will just attach a new leader to its deck and probably do pretty well.
Dudeness, any thoughts for you about Boba Fett?
I think Boba Fett is pretty cool. Getting a little miniature overwhelming barrage when you attach it as the upgrade, that at least has some kind of, you'll at least have some value guaranteed if he does get confiscated or disabling thing fighter or power failure or aggression or et cetera, et cetera. But I think a 4/4 is a solid upgrade into space to the thing. I don't know. I want to try out the pilot mechanic on these leaders. I am dubious of their actual effectiveness because if they do get good, there's such an easy, obvious counter. And being forced into the ground lane to counter that is you're not excited about it. We'll see, though.
I mean, technically, they can always deploy into the ground lane as long as you have a vehicle down there, because it doesn't say ship, it says vehicle.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's true. So you could make a ground vehicle deck, but there are only so many of those.
Yeah.
I am, with Boba Fett, I am interested to see, he deploys at 6, and Fire Spray from set 1 comes down at 6. And so, giving 4 attack is kind of a lot. Meaning you could have a 9/10 Fire Spray, which seems pretty gross. That's
which is then a leader unit. So let's say you're playing against a control deck who has Fell the Dragon waiting for all those pesky Fett's Fire Sprays, and you get them to tap down below 4 so they can't play it this turn. If they play it, I'll just kill it next turn, which is sometimes common for control decks. Then you deploy Boba Fett onto your Fett's Fire Spray, and your opponent goes, "Oh no, I am dead."
Yeah, I think your opponent was dead when they decided to drop below 4 resources playing against a Boba Fett leader. They had 6 resources open to potentially play.
I hear what you're saying, but you don't always get that choice as the control deck. Sometimes you have to just be like, I can't just wait for this to kill me because they can just claim and still kill me. So they have to do something.
And the fact that when it deploys, it does deal that damage means that if they did have a Sentinel ship like a Concord Dawnbreaker, you got rid of it. So I think that seems like that's a lot of power to be giving a unit.
And it's interesting to note that they do make him a 4/7 though, which is the appropriate power level for a 6 cost deploy leader. So it's great to see that the fine folks down at FFG have hammered that out and have figured that out.
And actually, Boba Fett now also has the most number of aspects amongst its printings, as it's gotten 5 of the 6 aspects. We've seen it all but Vigilance, so we'll have to wait for that Vigilance Boba leader. They did say in the stream that they know that this is the 3rd printing of Boba and the 3rd printing of Han in 4 sets, and they said they were going to chill for a couple sets, which kind of makes sense.
They're going to chill.
So that was also asked when I was next to the developers, and so MJ gave the reasoning. I think Ryan also was there. So they both gave the reasoning of they look at the sets from the year perspective, and they have a list of characters they must have every year, like a Luke and a Vader, right? Those the most iconic characters, so they should be in every year of Star Wars Unlimited, right? So for these 3 sets, they said, okay, we have Jump to Light Speed, we have Legends of the Force, and Secrets of Power. So which set does it make most sense for us to have Boba Fett and Han Solo in? Legends of the Force? Neither of them are Force users. Secrets of Power? Maybe, but Jump to Light Speed, the space set. These are 2 of the best pilots in the galaxy. Makes a lot of sense. So that was kind of their reasoning for that. So I get that it was kind of so quick, close to the other ones, but just kind of how the sets worked out for the set for year 2.
Yeah, I personally have no problem with it. You're going to get these things, and they fit so well in this theme. And you were going to, of course, get Han Solo and Boba Fett in the first set that was in that time period. Set 2, they just made sense if you're going to choose Underworld as your theme.
Right.
And this one, so it doesn't seem like any of them are a stretch. If we did see them in the 4th set, that would seem weird to me. I would be remiss if we didn't also talk about another leader that was revealed. This one from the actual set. And this is Asajj Ventress. One of the things that I find really interesting about Asajj is a Force, has the Force trait. Now, as a leader itself, we have other leaders like this. But Asajj is a pilot as well. It does have the pilot mechanic as well, which means that when you deploy her as a pilot, she now becomes our first force upgrade, which which was referenced in the previous set. So I just think that's kind of an interesting thing. But Asajj she's a rare leader, and her action size on her action ability on her undeployed side is deal 1 damage to a friendly unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena. So this is pretty close to. This is the pretty easiest way to deal a damage to an opponent's unit, I think, that we have. Where we have things like Vader, which costs you a resource. We have things like Quinlan Voss, which you have to play a unit. That's not that bad. But there is a restriction on that damage because it has to be something that costs the same. Even things like Bo-Katan, you do have to have attacked with a Mandalorian unit. So Asajj, all you need to do is have a unit on the board, and then you can deal damage to something in the same arena. I think that's pretty neat, pretty fun. And then when she deploys at 6, she either deploys as a 4/6. She does have a keyword. She does get grit if she deploys as a ground unit. Or as a pilot, she gives the unit +3/+4. And then that unit gains grit. And it also gets an ability which on attack, you can deal 1 damage to a friendly unit. And if you do, deal 1 damage to a unit in the same arena, an enemy unit in the same arena. So I think she does have an interesting ability that, like, giving one of your things grit and then them attacking, dealing a damage to themselves means they do get stronger. Kind of like Boba Fett, she's able to give them 4 attack essentially. So I'm interested to see what that does. Any thoughts from you guys on Asajj?
I think she's okay. She doesn't stand out to me as like super impact. I think Boba Fett's actually a better leader. I think he just does more. So we'll see. I mean, obviously it depends on some of the key cards that could be in the set to help her out. Definitely interesting. I know we got a bunch of Asajj lovers in the community, so glad to see her getting some love here, and that she probably has the most keywords for a leader, if I had to guess, between Force, Knight, Bounty Hunter, and Pilot. I think that's the most on a single leader, other than maybe Palpatine from set 1.
Yeah,
So I think had 4.
Yeah.
So she ties that, so that's pretty cool.
Imperial, Official, Force, and Sith was what Palpatine had. So I have.
So she's as good as Palpatine, clearly.
Dudeness, any thoughts from you on Asajj?
I like her ability. The ability to just trade off damage on your units to ping off the other guys is good because it has the no resource cost is huge. Because a lot of the times having to spend that resource, you mentioned Mace Windu earlier. There's a reason why he doesn't see play. It's because he takes it costs you that resource, and being able to get a free damage in, quote unquote free. It does take an action still, so it's going to be slow. You're almost never going to be claiming, but it's interesting.
And but you can't do it turn 1 though. That's the thing. You can do it turn 1.
You can do it turn 1. This is true, and you can be pinging the unit the entire time, and then put the grid upgrade on the unit you're about to deploy.
Yep.
So, I mean,
she seems to pair pretty well with Krennic for Twin Suns.
True.
Honestly, a lot of leaders, I think, like even Kira, I think was a fun pair with Krennic.
Kira's nuts with him in Twin Suns. I played that deck in Twin Suns, and I got targeted so hard because it was too good. And I was like, okay, never again. Too good. Got it.
So, yeah, those are the 3 leaders we have. 3 of the 18 leaders that we're presumably going to get in this set. We are 1/6 away. We did get some other quick pictures that is worth mentioning. We've got some more leaders that we can kind of parse out. One of them is a blue heroism leader of Lando Calrissian. And we also have a aggression villainy leader of looks like Major Vonreg. Again, we don't have the full cards for them. We know that this Major Vonreg has 5 health and has a pilot ability, and we can kind of see that Lando probably has Sentinel. Apart from that, though, we don't really know much else about them.
Nice.
And I think honestly the most important card of all these, and this little fan that we have, these little teasers, is
Goldbeater
Starhawk, bro.
Oh,
that is a big boy. We're getting a big, bad, heroic capital ships.
Heroic command.
All the capital ships. I want to make a capital ship deck.
So that one is
at every single cost. 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop.
That one has 9 health, so it's probably going to cost a decent penny.
Exactly.
We also see on this span Razor Crest, which looks like it's going to be just cunning. So it'll be a not heroism aligned with.
Why would you say that?
You can tell on the side of the art there that like
Oh,
they've got like the white fanning or the black fanning. So that's why you can kind of.
I
Yeah.
would say I've never noticed that, but also all my cards are hyperspace, so I also wouldn't have seen that.
So these are some of the cards that we have we've seen. We also got the pack previews with 3 cards on them. One of them we did get the art of the top part of the card. So Gold Leader, the card Gold Leader, which is a heroism vigilance card for 6. We don't have any abilities for it other than it having 5 health. We have what looks like potentially an R2 leader or an upgrade. And then we have a pilot. Jrod, what's that pilot's name?
Poe Dameron.
Oh, that's Poe. Okay, cool. So we also have Poe Dameron, which looks like probably going to be art for a leader.
If Faith loves to tell his friends he's got a Star Wars podcast, like, well, you don't know Star Wars. He's like, yeah, but I still have one. Don't mind me.
And that's most of all the news. The only other big news is that we did find out that we're not going to get any droid and clone trooper tokens this set. Instead, we're going to get TIE Fighter and X-Wing tokens, which are basically the same thing, 1-1 and 2-2, vigilance and heroism and villainy, but they are in space instead of on the ground.
I honestly love the shield tokens from this set. The experience is like medium for me, but the shield tokens are fire. Not that I actually use those, but I know Dudeness is a big lover of those, and I imagine he's going to want a bunch of those shield tokens for his capital ship deck.
Absolutely. It's also important to note that TIE Fighter and X-Wing tokens do not have the Imperial and Rebel trait on them. They are just vehicles and fighters.
One more quick thing as we're mentioning some leaders that are in the set. Every set we do a Discord challenge, I guess I'll put it, where you try to guess the leaders that are going to come out in the set. It is already locked for this set, unfortunately. But we do a bunch of fun stuff like that on the Discord. So if you're interested in hanging out, talking with us, and doing some fun challenges in there, definitely hop in the Discord. We do try to interact with a bunch of people and try to chat in there. So come hang out and check it out.
Yes, thank you so much. And so just a reminder for those, as we're wrapping things up here, make sure that you comment and that you like on the video and all our other videos, and to enter into the contest. And also make sure you guys snuggle up to that subscribe button, and you can get more videos from us. We'll see you next time on Outmaneuver.